Good morning, it's October 10th, and this is Two High-Level Friends. Well, liberals and Democrats are in a box. President Donald Trump orchestrated a peace agreement between Israel and Hamas. This is something no other president has been able to do. But that means they would have to give Trump credit, and that goes beyond their comprehension. Nothing Trump does could be a good thing in their eyes. Other people were involved in this peace agreement. Leaders of other countries had to buy in and agree to the plan. But make no mistake, this was a Trump plan and a Trump victory. It is something that should have caught the eyes of those stuffed shirts in Copenhagen. They should have awarded Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, but they could not bring themselves to do that because they're all part of the anti-Trump crowd. They gave it to Marian Corina Machado, a Venezuelan opposition leader. They described her as, quote, a brave and committed champion of peace. Now, this is not to denigrate Ms. Machado. She's done wonderful work in Venezuela. But nothing that she's done trumps what Donald Trump had done. And Trump is still eligible for the award next year. It'll be hard to understand if they stiff him again. And if you listen to the Hostage and Missing Families Forum, the group representing the families of hostages and terror victims, you get a true picture of what many feel. In a letter to the committee, they wrote, quote, in this past year, no leader or organization has contributed more to peace around the world than President Trump. While many have spoken eloquently about peace, he has achieved it. While others have offered empty promises, he has delivered tangible results that save countless lives. He has not merely spoken of peace, he has delivered it, end quote. That is the most defining statement of why somebody should get that award. And you have to wonder what this group in Sweden will think if Trump's able to end the war in Ukraine. Will they find someone else again to award the prize? Wouldn't surprise me. So how did Trump make this deal work? First, he put Israel's security first. A change from the Biden policy where they kept pressuring Israel to stop attacking Gaza and pull back. That would have played into the hands of Hamas. It would have given them time to regroup and rearm. There are still some things to happen, but it's very promising. There's no real guarantee that Hamas is going to completely disappear. Remarkably, Hamas is giving up its best leverage, but Israel isn't. Even after the hostages are ransomed, Israeli soldiers will remain in more than half of Gaza, including by the Egyptian border, to stop weapons smuggling. Hamas has demanded, but it is releasing 250 terrorists serving life sentences and 1,700 Gazans detained during the war. Will this seed the next attack as the 2011 hostage deal seeded October 7th by freeing its mastermind? Time will tell. The answer depends on Israel's ability to enforce the latter phase of the deal. If the new Gulf Arab-led stabilization forces to be deployed in Gaza fails to disarm Hamas and demilitarize the Strip, Israeli troops will be in a position to do so themselves with what Mr. Trump calls full backing. In accepting these terms, Hamas effectively acknowledges its defeat, even if it hopes to bide its time and live to fight another day. Now, Democrats will say that Trump was able to squeeze Netanyahu and force him to accept the terms, but that fails to explain the concessions by Hamas and get the story backward. As I pointed out, it was Trump's constant and consistent support for Israel's security that forced Hamas to make concessions, something Biden never did. The lessons of Mr. Trump's method are also worth noting. First, sustained U.S. pressure was needed on Hamas, not Israel. The more Mr. Biden restrained Israel or blocked arms shipments, the less reason Hamas had to cut a deal. The terrorists expected Mr. Biden to force Israel to stop if they held out long enough. Mr. Trump reversed Hamas calculus. Neither protest nor Iranian escalation could cause him to rein in Israel. Instead, his threat to Hamas garnered a January hostage deal after which he encouraged Israel to conquer Gaza. That was nearly completion when Hamas took this new deal. Second, there was no substitute for Israeli military pressure. Even a few weeks ago, the conventional wisdom was the war was no longer accomplishing much, least of all the recent Gaza City offensive. Fighting in this sensitive area was supposed to doom the hostages. Hamas saw it differently. Facing the demolition of its capital, it first agreed to a partial hostage deal that it resisted for months. When Prime Minister Netanyahu said this wasn't enough and demanded all hostages be freed at once, critics said this meant the Prime Minister wanted no deal. Wrong again. Hamas buckled, and Israel's getting back all of its hostages. Third, Hamas allies had to feel the heat. Mr. Biden stressed de-escalation, opposing the offensive against Hezbollah and shielding Iran from stronger retaliation. He backed Egypt in blocking Gaza refugees and renewed the U.S. military base in Qatar for nothing in return. Trump backed and joined Israel's June campaign against Iran, leaving Hamas' political strategy in shambles. Iranian escalation could no longer bail out Hamas. The president also leveraged Qatar Turkey and Egypt to coerce Hamas into a deal. It turns out these U.S. partners had that power all along, but Biden wasn't using it. There are a lot of lessons to be learned in this deal, and some of them can be applied to the war in Ukraine. Putin will never understand anything but force. Trump should now ramp up the pressure on the Russian leader to end the war, put more crippling economic sanctions on Russia, have NATO give Ukraine the weapons it needs, and allow them to start striking Russia itself. End that war, and the Nobel Committee will have no other choice than to award Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. And that will send liberal and Democrats over the edge of sanity. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.